When I was practicing dentistry in the late 80s, I went to a dental society meeting, and at that meeting, I had noticed over the years that I was practicing in a little town of about 3,600 people, and all of the leadership and all of the focus for the dental society was on the large metropolitan area of Santa Rosa, which isn't big by a lot of standards here, but that was the focus of that. And I went up to one of the leaders of the dental society, and I said, why isn't there more rural representation? It's a big dental society, 3 counties. Why isn't there more rural representation? And he looked at me, and he turned around and walked away. And that really, for me, was a seminal moment in my fight to represent the folks in rural communities, way back in the late 80s. It led me to work on with the Dental Society, eventually, the Dental Association, and eventually led me here. They say don't fall in love with your bills, but I fell in love with this one before it was a bill. I say fall in love with your bills. Don't, maybe not the bill itself, but the passion, show some passion for the subject matter, and don't quit. We started working on this 3 years ago. 3 years ago. This bill left this House a year ago, 14 months ago, and sat in Senate Health. Eventually, yesterday was passed off the Senate floor. So what does this bill do? This bill would authorize a distressed hospital loan program recipient, a small hospital, a rural hospital, a critical access hospital, or a healthcare district as defined and except as specified to seek approval from the Department of Healthcare Access and Information for a delay to the January 1, 2030 for the purpose of complying with seismic deadlines. And so I heard loud and clear from our colleague from San Jose yesterday, we need to get this done. I absolutely agree. We need to get this done. But I want you to consider for a minute that I represent 6 critical access hospitals. And for those of you who don't know what a critical access hospital is, it's a hospital that has 25 beds or less. There are 37 in the state, and I have 6 of those in my district. And it's challenging. One of those hospitals has 9 beds. So you tell me how a hospital like that compares to, Cedars-Sinai in LA or any Kaiser in Oakland or Sutter in Santa Rosa. It doesn't compare. Yet we put the same parameters around all of these hospitals that don't have the same revenue sources. They don't have the same access. They don't have the same labor pools in those areas. And so my plea at one point was I met with people who to talk about how can we change that, and I said I asked for help. I asked for help from labor. I asked for help from I asked for help from HCI. I asked for help from a lot of folks. How can we make a difference for some of these smaller hospitals? And originally this bill only had 40 hospitals in it, roughly, because of the criteria we created. It's unusual that this bill is actually bigger and more expansive than it was when it started. And I think that kind of reflects the challenges of the issues that we're facing with hospitals. But part of the reason I did this is that, in associations and things, it's often the big dogs with the big tails that wag furiously and get all the attention. And a lot of these smaller hospitals, while they're members of the same associations, they don't get that attention. Just like folks in rural communities don't get the attention, they don't get the technical support, they don't get the help that they actually need to get some of this done. And it's just the way it is. But it's the people that I represent. It's the people that a lot of you represent. This bill is bipartisan, bicameral, and it's a really important bill. Give these hospitals, some of them single-story wooden structures. In one in my district, it survived earthquakes of 7.0 magnitude. Never lost a day of service. Never lost a day of service. But it's a small hospital. It's struggling to make ends meet. And so they don't have the revenue. They don't have all that. So all I wanted was more time. And really, what I really wanted was more technical assistance, help these hospitals comply, because the goal is to comply, just like my colleagues said from San Jose. It's been 40 years, and it's hard to comply. And with this bill today, we might get there. We might get there, and we still got another step. I have to convince the governor that this is a good idea, and I hope he will sign this bill. But I want to thank some folks who have worked with me on this for a long time. Laura Flynn, the Chief Consultant for the Health Committee. This has been a passion of hers, as it has been mine, and she's been with me every step of the way. And she's in the back of the chamber today, and I want to say thank you to Laura. And I want to thank Roz Pulmano, who was our Chief Consultant in the Health Committee, for her help on this. And I want to thank my former chief, Liz Snow, who got us started on this 3 years ago. But I also want to put a shout out to a couple of other folks as well. Angela Pontes in the governor's office, who we worked with, and I have tremendous respect and appreciation for her help on this, helping to keep this on the tracks for us while we could hopefully work out the details. Matt Leger, the SEIU, who was great and frank with me and told me what I needed to know to be able to help protect workers and hopefully get this across the line. And I appreciate his frankness and the ability to work across the aisle with me. And so many others. And so they say, like I said, they say don't fall in love with your bills, and maybe you shouldn't, but fall in love with the issue. Fall in love with what you need to do to help represent the people that you represent, that you were elected to take care of. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, and ask for you to concur in Senate amendments on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. Assemblymember Gallagher, you are recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also want to rise in support of this legislation, and I want to thank the author for many years working on this issue. Really has been a champion of rural hospitals in many different ways. I can remember we were talking about, on direct hire, as well, several years ago, and got that through a lot of hard work on that. And, as was said, our rural hospitals, especially have been going through some very tough times. As of late, going through COVID, having, different issues that have affected them. But certainly meeting some of these requirements are not easy, and especially for rural hospitals that are, as you could probably imagine in some of our areas, this is the only hospital for hundreds of miles around. And when we're talking about, maternity care, and we're talking about the emergencies where people need to get to a hospital quickly, we can't do without them. And the harsh reality right now is that many of them are on the verge of going out of business and leaving. And that is a scary thing for the author and myself. And I know many on our side, the gentleman from Fresno has, worked on this issue. The gentlelady from Bieber, who has worked a lot on this issue. So very appreciative that we can get this through. I think there's very strong bipartisan support for this today. But I am thankful to the author and his team who've been working on this for quite some time. And, the hope is that we will get that done today. We'll get this signed by the governor because it is much needed relief for our rural hospitals. So thank you, and I ask for your aye vote on this measure.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gallagher. Assemblymember Garcia, you are recognized.
Thank you, Presiding Officer and colleagues. I want to rise in support of this bill, but at the same time acknowledge the work of the author, who has been a great champion for rural communities throughout the state of California. This issue is really at the core of the health and well-being of our communities throughout the entire state. And my direct connection to this issue is seeing two hospitals in our own district struggling to keep the lights on and the doors open, and in some cases make payroll. the next few weeks. This effort will help create a path to ensure financial stability for our hospitals, and with the hopes of, yes, being able to come into compliance when it comes to these seismic retrofitting circumstances or other access to healthcare challenges that we have. But it's important that we pay close attention to the issue, because it's far greater than just the idea of hospitals being able to come into compliance. Communities that have challenges when it comes to access to healthcare are the same communities that have the economic challenges, the environmental justice issues, and the list goes on and on and on as it pertains to making sure that we have a healthy, strong California for everyone. And oftentimes we hear conversations here on who should have and who shouldn't have access to health care. It's a fundamental right that we should all be fighting for, and it starts with these types of efforts to making sure that all Californians have that same privilege and opportunity to have these services provided to them. So I just wanted to stand in strong support of the bill, but also say thank you to the author for being a great champion this last decade for this important work. On behalf of my district and our constituents, we thank you and respectfully ask for an aye vote.